Hey guys, this is Chris B, otherwise known as Bystander X79, and with it being Thursday today, I'm going to be doing a bit of a throwback video to the first deck I actually profiled on my channel, Kozmo's. Alright? Now, if you guys are into comparing decks, I will leave a link in the description to the original build that I posted back in December. Alright? This version of the deck has been updated for the current format of February 2018, and the most notable addition to the deck that I made is a full 15 card extra deck. Alright, without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Okay, first and foremost we have Kozmo Dark Destroyer. Alright, Dark Destroyer, whenever it's summoned, pops a monster on the field. And like all ships, when it's destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can banish it from the graveyard to special summon a second type Kozmo monster from your deck to the field. Alright? Typically the big monsters, the machine monsters, we call the ships in this deck. The psychic type monsters we call the pilots. Okay, we do that. Next card in there. Kozmo Dark Eclipser. Now, Dark Eclipser is one of the few ships in the Kozmo archetype that actually turns around. Doesn't float, it actually searches when it's destroyed and been banished. So keep that in mind. While it's face up on the field, you can actually negate the activation of a trap card by banishing a Kozmo monster from your graveyard. It's a cool effect. Depending on what you're going to be encountering, really depends on how useful that first effect's going to be. Primary reason why Dark Eclipser is in here is because Dark Destroyer is still at 1 on the limited list, and we need another 3,000 attack point body. Okay, next ship we have is 2 copies of Kozmo Forerunner. Alright, now Kozmo Forerunner, while it's face up on the field, during each standby phase, gets you 1,000 life points, which is great because the deck's second type pilot monsters, they use life points in order to activate their effects. The Kozmo Talon Fistball also uses life points as well, so you're going to need a way to regenerate your life points. This guy is it. Another big thing is that for all the big ships, the level 7 and higher ships, Forerunner, Dark Eclipser, Dark Destroyer, they all can't be targeted by your opponent's card effects, which is a very handy effect to have. Alright. Now we go to the lower ones, and we have level 6 Kozmo Landwalker. Now Landwalker is actually pretty cool because it can actually change your opponent's targeting effect to a different Kozmo card in order to protect it. So you can actually change it to itself or to another card that can be targeted, and you can just basically ruin your opponent's plays by popping something that you want instead of what they want. Okay. And of course we run the 3 copies of Kozmo Sliprider. Whenever it's summoned, you pop a spell or trap card. Can't turn around and tell you how important that effect is in this meta. With Pendulum decks being pretty straightforward dominant, you're going to need this card and constantly be bringing this card back in order to keep the scales off the field and keep your opponent off tilt. Very important there. Alright, so that was the ships. I run 8 ships. I also run 8 pilots. I feel very strongly that an equal ratio of ships to pilots gives you the best chances of pulling what you need at the start of the duel or throughout the course. So the first card here, Kozmo Farm Girl. She's a level 3. Whenever she does battle damage, you pay 500 life points and you get to search your deck for another Kozmo card. She also opens up a lot of OTK potential. That's why she's back in this deck. I love her effect so much. Downside to it is that her effect needs to really hit home. She's only got 1,500 attacks, so it's going to be necessary for you to turn around and figure out how to either swing through with her on an open field or try to knock your opponent's attack points down using another card effect, which I happen to have in the extra deck. So we'll get into that when we get to it. Alright, next thing, I also run one copy of Kozmo Sword Troopers. Sword Troopers works insanely well with this deck, just like Dark Eclipser, because all Kozmo decks run the Tin Can engine. Pay 1,000 life points, you get special summon a Kozmo Psychic type monster from your graveyard back to the field. Okay. And we have one copy of Kozmo Strawman. Basically, he's on the field. You pay 500 life points. You bring back a Kozmo monster that was banished back to the field. Its effects negated and it's destroyed at the end of the turn, which means pretty much you're going to be bringing back your ships in order to get more pilots onto the field. I like running him at 1. I've seen some other builds that like to run him at 2. I feel 1 is a little bit better. Because there are going to be times when you have this guy in your hand but you don't have anything else and in your hand to summon off of him or bring back with his effects. So I feel 1 is a little bit better. He's more of a 1 mid to late game card. Now I mentioned this before. Kozmo Tin Can. This card is the engine of the deck. During your end phase you pay 500 life points. You reveal 3 Kozmo cards from your deck to your opponent, and then your opponent chooses one of them at random to add to your hand. The other 2 go to the graveyard. Because of the graveyard effects of Dark Eclipser and the recursion of Sword Troopers, it works insanely well with this deck. It thins out your deck. It gets what you need. Hopefully, it gets what you need into your hand or into your graveyard so you get down to the field. So that's why we run him at 3. Now, I also run one copy of Kozmo Dark Lady. Kozmo Dark Lady is basically a walking effect negator. You pay 1,000 life points. You can turn around and negate one of your opponent's card effects. She is a level 5, so you're gonna have to bring her off of one of the low level pilots, or off of one of the ships, a level 6 or higher. But once she hits the field, she can negate monster effects and be a bit of a pain. And speaking of pains, I also run the other Kozmo Wicked Witch. I love Kozmo Wicked Witch in this deck because you pay 1,000 life points and you basically render her indestructible to battle or card effects. So if you bring her in off of a ship effect, you can put her into defense mode, pay the 1,000 life points, and just let her sit there and wall your opponent out. Your opponent will have no choice but to turn around and either attempt to negate her effect activation or pass and let you go. Alright. So that's it for all the monsters in this deck. We're going to go hit the spells now. Alright. First spell card I run is 2 copies of Allure of Darkness. Now, if anybody who's done the comparison between this video and my previous Kozmo video, you can see where the reason why I'm running this at 2. I'm actually running less Dark Attribute monsters in this, so I had to cut down on the Allure of Darkness. It's still a damn good card with the effects this deck has in it. Get you 2 cards, you banish a Dark Attribute monster, so it's still a good draw card for the deck. Alright, and then next card for draw power and consistency, we have triple card Demise. Yeah, sorry about this, guys. My deck, my Kozmo deck, not a budget build, because I'm running Demise, but still, it's a great draw power card. I know I'm running 16 monsters, which is kind of high for most of my Demise builds, but with the recursion this deck has in it, you're not going to mind drawing into other monsters and sending them to the graveyard. Typically, like everything, you could be like other decks that use this card, you're going to need to activate this during a main phase 2. Hopefully you have empty hand to draw 3. Set what you need, and if you have to discard stuff, discard it to the graveyard and move on with your turn. This deck mostly special summons on your opponent's turn, so you really don't have to worry about it messing up your plays. Of course, we have one copy of Darkhold, board wipe, which is necessary considering that the chips need to be popped by card effects in order or battle to get their effects going. So that's why it's there. The one copy of Emergency Teleport. This is basically C Kozmo Tin Can more card. You can also bring out Farm Girl and Storeman with it, or Soul Trooper or Storeman with it. So you do have options, but typically, mostly you're going to be wanting to use this to get to Kozmo Tin Can. Alright, next card. Very important to the deck. I mentioned this before. Kozmo Town uses life points to bring back monsters that were banished. Basically, it's 100 times the monster's level. So you want to more or less bring back your pilots onto the field. I mean, into your hand so you can replay them. It can actually unbrick your hand by sending unwanted Kozmo monsters back into the deck and drawing the same number of cards. And if it ever pops, you get to search for another Kozmo card, including itself. Awesome card. Of course, new format. We got Monster Reborn back. The ultimate recursion spell card. Just needs to be in here. Alright. Also, 1/1 helps to unclog the hand, get you Kozmo Tin Can as well. So, and last spell that I run, 3 copies of Duality. Dig into deck 3 cards, pick the card you need for the right situation. Typically, yeah, it does take away your special summon for the turn, but since you special summon mostly on your opponent's turn, setting up for your opponent's turn just to turn around and get your ships out, not a bad thing. All right, so that's it for the spells. On to the trap lineup. For the traps, I run 2 copies of Back to the Front. I actually like this card over Oasis of Dragon Souls. Primary reason is that it's chainable to your opponent's back row destruction. And it puts a monster back on the field in defense mode, so it forces your opponent to turn around and use another one of their effects or trying to attack over it in order to get rid of that monster. I feel that this is a much better card than Oasis of Dragon Souls, considering that it doesn't attach itself to the monster, so it actually does help force your opponent's hand a little bit in that situation. Alright, I also run 2 copies of Bottomless Trap Hole. I found 2 clogging in this deck. 2 is the perfect amount for Bottomless Trap Hole in this deck. Great to use against decks that like to mass summon a lot during the turns. Hence, anti-pendulum card. Can basically just knock out their entire field and set your opponent back many turns with that. Of course, I run 3 copies of Call the Haunted. Again, it is chainable to destruction effects, but typically you bring back a monster, it's going to be a ship from your graveyard, it's going to be popped, you pop the ship, which means you get another pile on the field, so that's pretty much of a standard play in this deck. And then last but not least, we run 2 copies of Cosmojo. Pop a card on your field, banish something from your opponent's graveyard or on your opponent's field. It's a great card to have. Helps with the ship's effects, and just gets things going a lot faster. Alright, so on to the extra deck. Okay. Extra deck. Now, I only run 1 Link Monster in my extra deck. It's Underclock Taker. I find it the best Link Monster to be running, and this is it uses 2 monsters that you have in the field. And the best part about it is you target 1 card on your opponent's 1 monster on your opponent's field, and the card that it points to, and the card that it points to, and your opponent's monster loses attack points equal to the card it points to. So if you have one of the bigger ships, Forerunner, Destroyer, or Eclipser, you can basically bottom out your opponent's attack and then swing through them with Farm Girl to get her effect. Very useful card. Alright, I also run a little bit of a small rank 3 toolbox here. So basically it's Break Sword, Grand Pulse, and Nightmare Shark. Break Sword removes monsters from your opponent's field. Grand Pulse can remove spells and traps. And Nightmare Shark can add extra damage to your opponent. Onto your opponent. So alright, next I run Constellation Pleiades, and of course I also run a rank up card in Tomely M7. Pleiades is a quick effect that can actually, a quick effect version, monster version of compulsory evacuation device, can bounce stuff off your opponent's field. Totally, M7 can do the same thing, or it can even return stuff from the graveyard back to your hand, which is kind of handy in this deck. Alright. I also run another bit of the rank 5 toolbox, and that's going to consist of Volcasaurus, which pops a monster and then burns your opponent. One up Arsenals and Mile. I like this card. Takes 2 level 5 monsters, and you could target 2 set cards on the field and just pop them. And then, of course, you can then turn either of these into Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger and just start attacking with a bigger monster. Alright. And the next thing is I also run a Cyber Nova Dragon package. So you have 2 Cyber Nova Dragons. I also have 1 copy of Cyber Dragon Infinity, and I run the Barbaroi, the Ultimate Battle Monster, or Battle Machine, excuse me. Basically, Nova gets built with 2 machines. You turn it into Infinity, which can negate or take away face-up cards, hence create anti-link monster with it, since they can't go into defense mode. Barbaroi is actually pretty good against Pendulum decks. Crash your Nova Dragon into a bigger monster, get this guy out, and just start letting him swing. He attacks twice per battle phase, inflicts 1,000 points of extra damage onto your opponent when it destroys a monster, and prevents monster effects from going off when it gets into the graveyard. So he's a very good fusion monster, and being a 4,000 attack point body, 4,000 attack and defense point body isn't bad either. Alright, and last but not least, I do have 2 Forerunners, so I do run a little bit of a level rank 7 suite, and I got 2 of my favorites here. Number 11, Big Eye, which basically just steals monsters from your opponent. Yeah, so you can attack with them, and then the other one is Red Eye's Flare Metal Dragon, which basically makes your opponent pay for any effects they activate. I find both of them are pretty good. Red Eye's Metal Flare can actually cause them to stall, especially if they have to pay life points to activate their own effects. Big Eye is just great because you're taking away their monsters and taking away their board presence with it. So both very good tool colors to have. Alright? So that's it. That would be my Kozmo deck for the February 2018 format. Alright? Again, link to my previous Kozmo video for the November 2017 format will be in the description. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Love the video, subscribe, use the notification bell to let me know, to know when I throw up new videos. And I will be seeing everybody in the next one. Peace out, everybody.